Hello everybody. Today what we're going to learn how to connect to the Claude API using its standard API request and response and understand what is happening behind the scenes. So once you call Claude API, what is happening, what are we getting, and what is system prompting. These are the main concepts that I'm going to focus in today's discussion. And quick recap before jumping into this topic. Last time we discussed about chatbot and agent. So chatbot basically we type something to the LLM and LLM in turns returned us the answer. So before jumping into the agent, so understand how it is happening programmatically. We know from the browser how it happens. Now we do ourselves via Python coding. The prerequisites are good understanding of Python. That's the prerequisites. Then I'll explain you about how to use Claude API. So before using Claude, you need to set up an API key. So you need to go to console.anthropic.com and you need to create your user ID login, where you will get an option to create a key. So I have given the steps here. I'm not just going through all of them. It's very easy. You go to the site, then you create a API key, you copy that key and paste that into your local folder, because that's a secret key. You are not supposed to put it in directly into your code. That should be in your environment variable. That should not be promoted even in GitHub. That's a secured key. So in a same folder where you are running this project, create a .env file where you use this text and copy your key here. We're going to use this particular reserved word in our program or constant in our program. So before going to other steps, I would like you to set up your environment. My environment is already set. Probably you can see here. Okay, it's already a specific environment. Environment, we know the benefit, all these packages are staying or affecting only that particular area. It won't impact other projects. So you make a separate directory, you change into that directory, then you set up a virtual environment using Python -m. Any name you can give. This virtual environment, you can give any name of the environment. I have given Agentic. Then I'm working on a Windows system, so I'm discussing more about Windows related commands. So this is how you can activate that environment. So you can use these commands on the command line, then your environment will be activated. And after that you need to install, this is a important SDK for Anthropic. Anthropic you need to install using pip install, then that will be installed into your directory. After that you need to verify whether it is installed properly or not. You simply, if you are in using any notebooks, you have to use this magic command. If you are on a command line, you can directly use pip show. So I'm just showing you here pip show Anthropic. So it's already installed my environment, so I'll get all the information. If it was not installed, I would get package not found. So ensure it is installed on your virtual environment. And this is what generally happens. So when you are working not Anthropic, any LLMs, you have a front end, a browser provided where you type your questions. Then there is a middleware, that's a SDK, that's what we installed earlier, Anthropic, and that gets your request. This request in turn forwarded to your Anthropic LLM hosted on in cloud and somewhere, right? Then that LLM will respond you back to your SDK. SDK in turn will respond and show, it will be shown on your browser. That's a general flow. Okay, so we request the server, then request goes through Anthropic API, and model will process your whatever question. Then that question, a response will be created by LLMs that will be returned back to your server, and your server will display the answer to the browser. This is what is going to happen if you are using your browser. Here today we are not going to use browser. Instead of this browser, we use our Python code. This is already been installed. That's an Anthropic SDA. This is hosted remotely. It is managed by Anthropic. So this is how we're going to call our Anthropic API, and we need to import some of these packages. This is to load our key, and this is to load the SDK related packages, and this is for my beautiful formatting of my outputs. It's not required, it's an optional. This one also an optional. These two packages are optional. If you want, you can use pip install rich. And this particular method, okay, imported here, will load all your environment variables we stored in .env. That's where your key is installed. Okay, then this particular command, Anthropic, on this class we calling this method, and for this method a key is mandatory. This key we are fetching from the environment file. Okay, that's how we are in instantiating our client. We get an object here. On this object we keep communicating with Anthropic servers. And one of the constants important here is the model. We'll have different models, in the Anthropic. Here we are going to use Sonnet model. That's what my constant is. Okay, this is a small method. So in the small method I defined, because this object client is created here. Okay, on this client we use a message.create. That's the way to call your API. Then for this API we will send the model, whatever model that you're using, and this is maximum tokens. Tokens in a short while going to learn. Whatever we are inputting, that will be broken down into small pieces. Each piece is called a token, and this is actual message. Whatever we want to ask the uh, Claude API, thus message will be sent in particular list. The format for calling API is you need to specify the role. Here we are sending, so we specify it's a user, and content we need to specify whatever we are going to send. Okay, because this method is going to receive our input. Earlier the input was on the browser in the chat box. Now we are sending that information via API call. So this is the format. If you don't send in this format, you will get errors. Okay, I already ran this particular cell. It's already ran. Then I am calling this method. Okay, using my question, what is quantum computing, in one sentence. Earlier we were asking the chat window. Now I'm asking through Python call. Okay, then this call will be sent to SDK. SDK in turn calls the Anthropic API. So we simply built our request. From this request, we're calling Anthropic SDK. Anthropic SDK in turn make a request to the Anthropic API. That's where your LLM sits. The LLM will respond. The response comes back to SDK. SDK will store that response into our program variable. So this is where now the response is stored. Okay, I simply printed this response, what it is inside content. That's a response we got in real time from the Anthropic API. See, here you see different information. Okay, don't worry about this information. It contains a lot of information, but what we are interested in specific text box or text content. That's what we're going to see. Okay, so this is what most of the time we are interested. After we receive the response message dot content, the first list item, on the first list item whatever text is stored, that's what we wanted. That's what I'm going to print here. Okay, because my response is stored here. On the response you can give any name. I'm taking the content list of first item of the text. That's what I'm going to print. Okay, so I'm running this. So that's the response I got it. Quantum computing is type of a computation that uses quantum mechanical phenomena like superposition. So this is we got this response from the Claude API. Okay, here also printed some other information. How many tokens used in and out. If you see, these two are different. Okay, because when we are calling this API, we asking simple question, what is quantum computing? So that sentence split into different tokens. So total there are 15 tokens, and the response also included for your input question. So the output question having now all the tokens from this text and also from your input together is a total count on input and output count. What is mandatory here is you should have an API call if you want to call an Anthropic API, and you have to give a model. There are different models. So whatever model you want to use, you have to give that name. And messages, that's where it keep going and has different structure. For users, we need to specify the role as users. For a response, the role is assistant. For system, it's a specified at the top level, not in the messages. So it has a specific structure you have to follow, otherwise you will get an error response. Maximum tokens means you cannot send whatever input that you want. We specified here only 1024 tokens. That's the maximum tokens. If I want to send a big textbook more than these tokens, then Anthropic SDA will throw you an error. So there is a limitation here. So you have to specify maximum tokens, how much it can handle. So all these 4 are mandatory. You have to include whenever you call an API. So at high level, what is happening behind the scene, I just want to explain here. Probably you need to have some NLP knowledge, but it's very basic, so I'll just explain you at high level. So whenever you provide either in the browser or in the Python program input to the Anthropic API, the input will be split into smaller words. Sometimes it's not exact word, but smaller, what we call a token. So my question or my input, what is quantum computing, is split into what is quantum computing. Each one is a token. This is called a tokenization. So this tokenization happens. Okay. And whatever response will be included after this. All these got tokens. There are different algorithms. So tokenization varies from one algorithm to another. So if I give you a boy is running, A could be one token, boy is another token, is could be another token, run is a token, ing is a token. So it depends on what type of tokenizer are you going to use. Then the next step is the embedding. Embedding is basically numerical representation of your tokens. So to make sense of all these English or any language, so there are NLP techniques developed. Those techniques will convert your tokens into embeddings. Those are nothing but vectors. Don't worry about those mathematical concepts at this point. But who are having some NLP knowledge, they can understand. So it will be converted as numerical vectors. So the vectors will be used to find the similarity between words, because computers don't know English, so they know only in terms of numbers. Then in the model, contextualization happens. They understand the meaning of words based on the sentence where it is lying. It's everything happens through mathematics. Then the final step, the model will generate what could be the next token for this sentence to be completed. So the tokens are generated one by one, okay, in any LLM models, and all LLM models are probabilistic models, okay, they are deterministic models, but there is a parameter called temperature. Changing that temperature, you can make it more deterministic or more probabilistic. It depends on the temperature parameter. Deterministic algorithm says the algorithm always gives you one output for a given input. Suppose if I give 1 and 2 and the algorithm is addition, it's always, the output is always 3. That is deterministic. But whereas in NLP, this is the output is not finalized. It's based on these tokens. Based on these tokens, what could be the next token? It based on the probability, it will be determined. It's not a fixed output all the time. It can change. That's the reason whenever you type same question, it changes a little bit, the output of the sentences. Then this is what I'm talking about, embedding. You see here, these are the numbers that can be understood by the systems. Because computers, what they can understand is numbers. Okay. And this is where I'm telling, okay, suppose for example, all these embeddings are your inputs, and this is the output token that is supposed to be generated by LLM model. Then the LLM model in turn suggests different words. Okay, each word will be given particular probability. The highest probability word generally that is included here. So this is generation. All these models, they generative AI means they generate next tokens based on the probability. And I am slightly changing now. I'm using two more methods. One is I'm just want to add the user message. So all your user message should be of this structure, a role and content. Okay. Then my assisted message means my API call. If I want to artificially add something as if it is written from my API, I'll use this particular role assistant. Assistant means API, and whatever is written, I'm adding, because I keep adding these to the same message that I keep sending. Okay, because unless you keep all your messages in particular memory area, your LLM will never understand previous discussion. So we keep adding these messages together into one memory area. Here it is a list. And here I am sending two more parameters, system and a temperature. Temperature determines how deterministic your model or how probabilistic is your model. So you can change this temperature values so that it changes more creative or less creative. And system basically prompting is to ensure LLM behaves in a certain way. Okay, so you need to tell the LLM what is your role. If you tell LLM the role, then it will work in that way only. So here I'm also sending, these are general Python fundas, so I'm not explaining those Python fundas. So I defined some parameters here. In case I'm also sending system, if it is exist, I'm going to include in the parameter list. Then I'm sending I'm messages. I'm creating this one messages. I'm sending these parameters. Okay. then I'm returning my LLM whatever responded. Okay, so this is, if you remember, this client is nothing but client earlier we have created for Claude. This is how we need to call Claude API. This is the Python way of sending parameters. It's like keyword argument. So this is what I was talking earlier. So the structure of the messages, role we specify, like this is the role we need to specify. User, if we are sending some inputs to the API, if we are getting response from the Claude API, we will include the role of assistant. System to manipulate, we don't specify here. At the parameter level, we specify system to modify the behavior of LLM. That's what I have shown over here. So let's understand that, okay, without system parameter, what happens? I have given a small input to, as a add user messages, basically it adds to your message, whatever text you are giving, it's adding and it's including in the messages. Okay. So I'm initializing initially no messages. I'm adding this user. I'm asking basically Claude, what is solve for x plus equal to for x. Okay. Chart means I have defined this procedure. I'm basically calling my Claude on the client message dot create. Then it will respond with its answer. This is what I'm interested, message dot content first item of the list dot text. That's what the answer will be. I already ran this cell. This is what the answer I got without a system message. Understand here the important role of system message. I just asked a question. Solve this f of x plus equal to for x. So it's given all the steps and solved it. Okay. But in some scenarios, I don't want to give the complete answer. I want to change the behavior of the system. Okay. Give hints, give direction to the student. Don't provide them complete answer. Then LLMs works well for good English. Okay. You need to write good English. English is, you need to be very good at writing clear, concise sentences. So here I'm changing the system behavior. You're a helpful assistant, provide guidance. So you're an assistant, provide guidance, and never provide direct answers. I'm instructing the LLM, don't give direct answers, but direct the students, help them. Okay, then I'm asking the same question. It's the same thing. Okay. I just added one user message. Then I set up the system message. Then I call the API, Claude API. Then I'm printing here the answer. I got the response in the answer. I'm just printing. How different this response is from the above one? The same question. See, here it is not giving you the direct answer. It's giving you the steps only. The model wanted you to learn rather than providing the answer. This is the crux of system messages. And simply, it changes the behavior of LLMs based on what system prompting that you're providing. Okay. So this is what I want to cover today. Basically, we covered how to call Claude API, understand the flow, how it is happening. Then we included the system messages, how it works. Okay, this is the overall basic crux you need to understand before jumping into agents. So in the next session, I'll set up basic use of agents. Then we gradually increase our knowledge.